Have you or someone you know recently gotten engaged and are now looking for a celebrant for your big day? Well, look no further because I am a registered marriage celebrant servicing the southeast Queensland and northeast New South Wales areas. Not only do I take care of all the paperwork, but I focus on creating a personalised ceremony that reflects you as a couple. So whether you want a ceremony that's fun and exciting, if you want a bit of a tearjerker, or maybe a bit of both, get in touch by heading to therollingcelebrant.com or look me up on Facebook or Instagram at the_rolling_celebrant and let's discuss how to make your wedding day one that you've always dreamt of, as long as no stairs are involved. Okay, you ready? Let's do it. You're listening to Chats from a Chair with me, Nick Dempsey, coming to you from my wheelchair. I speak with people who have a great story to tell, portraying the human potential, often in the face of adversity. Check out the Instagram page at chatsfromachair_podcast and let me know who you think I should have on and have a chat with. Also, don't forget to hit follow on whatever platform you're listening to this. But for now, sit back and enjoy this episode. This episode contains explicit material and is recommended for audiences 18 years and above. G'day and welcome back to another episode of Chats from a Chair. Today I have a special guest with me. I'll let her introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Avalon. I'm the owner of Beyond Barriers Intimacy, and I'm also a sex worker and a support worker.
I've been wanting to get a sex worker, particularly with people with disabilities that works with that, on for a while. So thank you for coming on and being open with what can be I guess a bit of a niche topic that people don't really want to talk about. So
yeah, no, people tend not to want to talk about sex or disability in general, let alone combine them. I am autistic and sex is my special interest, so I'm always ready to talk about sex.
All right, well, let's get into it then.
Awesome.
I guess to start with then, how and why did you get into the sex work industry?
I have always been very fascinated with the sex work industry, and I'm always very fascinated with sexuality in general. I've spent a lot of my time in my early 20s exploring my sexuality and talking to anyone and everyone that I could about their sexuality and their experiences. I dabbled in dancing and stripping in my when I was 23,
Yep.
no, 22. And I did that for a short while. I got married, started a family, got divorced, and then went, maybe I should do the thing I've been thinking about forever.
Yeah, right. It's a bit of a process to get there, and then you finally just bit the bullet and got into it.
Yeah, exactly. I think I did it at the right time for me, which is good.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely enjoying it, and I don't have any plans to look back from here.
Yeah, okay. What were your expectations going into it? And did you have any expectations or?
Not particularly, because when I came back into it after getting divorced, I started through the online sex work first. So the very classic, start your own OnlyFans page, kind of just engage from there. But the reality is that I was re-engaging with my sexuality online through spaces like Reddit and Twitter before I decided to monetize it.
Right.
And so it was actually quite a few fans, and this is very, very early stages, but people who were interested in what I was doing that were saying, hey, is there any way that I could actually pay you for specific content?
Right, yeah.
And so it was kind of introduced to me by these people that were like, I love what you're doing. Can I get something more specific off of you? Would you be open to payment? And I went, fair enough.
Why not? Yeah. So
I could do that.
Yeah. So it was more about just exploring your own sexuality at the start and then sort of progress from there. And then, okay, that's... Yeah, so OnlyFans is not, you've progressed out of that and now focus on your sex work sort of industry?
Yeah, so I progressed out of OnlyFans just mostly because OnlyFans, the platform, is actually relatively conservative. So I moved over to other platforms like Fansly, and then from there moved on to full service work, so in-person sex work, and working with people.
Yeah.
And the first way I started that was actually through working with the disabled, because I realised that the NDIS at the time was still funding sex work for people under their plans. and I had had a lot of experience in support work and working with people with high physical support needs, so things like muscular dystrophy. And I felt comfortable starting with that than the general population. So it was kind of like my foot in the door of combining two interests, and then realising I was comfortable with it, and then moving on to the general public.
So your first experiences were with people with disability
Yeah.
that you work. Yeah, okay. And I guess so. You saw the need for it when you're working with people that have the disability, and thought there's sort of a gap in the market and something you're interested in, and that's sort of what pushed you in that direction.
Yeah, that's correct. It was definitely not quite, I would say, like a gap in the market. There are lots of sex workers that will work with people with
Right.
disabilities,
Yep.
but there's definitely a gap in the market for it being advertised specifically, and for trying to make it as accessible as possible.
Yeah. Okay.
So a lot of sex workers that I've spoken to specifically who work with people with disabilities, a lot of the time, a lot of people who want to work with people with disabilities are just scared that they're going to do it wrong.
Yeah.
And so they don't have the confidence to go and help or work with like people with disabilities, because they just don't want to either do the wrong thing or hurt someone. So when I kind of came into it, I thought, well, if I'm going to start this, I want to start something that's specific and accessible. And so that's where Beyond Barriers Intimacy came from, because I wanted to build something that I could see, at least for right now, didn't seem to exist in Brisbane.
Yeah. Okay. We'll get into exactly what Beyond Barriers is a bit later, but yeah, it's a great service that is much needed. But I guess back a little bit to getting in that industry again. Did you tell friends and family, or was there any pushback from anyone? Or
No, not for my family at least. We're
Yeah.
very, very open. I think I told my sister and my mum first that I was doing like OnlyFans, and they were like, "Oh yeah, that tracks.
Yeah,
That's
right.
fine." And then I think when I moved on to full service, like again, it's just not a taboo thing in my family.
Yeah. Okay.
So literally almost everyone knows, and I work as a face out creator as well. So like I'm fine, obviously on camera with my face.
Yep.
I've been in the newspaper now. So it's something that in my family has always been normalized, and my mum from a very early age has made sure that things like talking about sex or talking about those kind of experiences, talking about drugs or alcohol, is not something that I ever felt like I had to hide from her.
Yeah. Okay.
And so it's always been a very comfortable environment for me.
I imagine that would have made it a lot easier having that support and things as well.
Oh, way easier. Yeah. It's much better having as big of a support network behind you when you start full service, just for things like safety.
Yeah, true. Did you ever have a bad experience or feel unsafe the first time going to meet with someone? Or
Not the first couple of times,
Yeah.
no. You can have like a plethora of bad experiences in the industry depending on what like your boundaries and your comfortability is. Like I've had clients that I've had to fire because like they've overstepped boundaries
Right.
or don't understand that no means no.
Yep.
I did have to fire an NDIS client once as well, just for overstepping boundaries, asking for things that are not appropriate.
Yep.
Or asking for things that you can't buy with your NDIS funding.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have any experience with people with disabilities, like I guess in your own just private sex life before getting into that in the industry, or?
No, I hadn't. I mean, apart from, so like I have chronic illness myself, and
Yep.
sometimes I use things like walking aids and stuff like that. So, my own experiences with my sexuality is probably as close as I get to that.
Yeah.
But never anyone with any physical disabilities. And I mean, I'm sure that's no surprise, from someone like yourself who knows how hard it is to get into like the dating market.
Yeah. Exactly.
When you present with like a physical disability. And so it's very, very rare that you come across it.
Yeah.
Like
of course.
in my recreational experience.
Yeah.
And so no, it was nothing ever experienced for me.
Yeah. Okay. I guess that people with disability as well, a lot of it can come from lack of confidence with that disability too, of just essentially putting yourself out there. So, like I think we'll get into it a bit more as well, but like a lot of what you do would be giving confidence and things to people to explore that outside of the paid space and just in their own personal life to get back out there.
I think the paid space can be something that people can use long term if they want to, but for a lot of people, they use paid sexual interactions, especially if they have physical disabilities, in order to just see what does and doesn't work for them. And so when they go into, you know, an experience that maybe you found on your own, recreationally, outside of payment, you know what you're doing already. You have the confidence to know what works for you, what positions work. You can work with that able-bodied or non-able-bodied person and actually give them direction. Because I think a lot of times people with physical disabilities, if they don't have the experience, it takes away their agency during sexual contact because they don't know, like, okay, well, you don't know and I don't know what positions we can use, so maybe we just won't do it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And make that a bit more uncomfortable when you sort of like can get a bit
Yeah.
awkward. So
Well, having sex with anyone can be awkward.
yeah, of course.
Like, no matter what sexual experience you're having, it can always have those moments of like, oh, a little bit of tension, like, oh, maybe this is something to giggle at, or maybe this person actually doesn't want me to giggle right now. Or like, I mean, even just seeing like all penises are different, all vaginas are different. And, you know, people with disabilities are the same in that respect as well. And so it's just, this is the first time you've seen this person naked, and now we're here, and now we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah. No, I actually have a mate that engaged with a sex worker that he's got a spinal cord injury as well, a fairly high level. He actually came on here and spoke about it, and it was, like you said, a lot of it was about just refinding that intimacy and what does and doesn't work for him, and so that he can then, you know, take that into his life and his personal life and things like that, just to find what works, what doesn't work, and
Exactly, because now you're confident to be like, hey, that thing you're doing right now with me actually is doing nothing.
Yeah.
Let's move on to this activity that I know is foolproof.
Yeah, exactly. That's why there's such a need for, I guess, even without people without disabilities still encounter a lot of those same problems. So,
yeah. I think there's also a lot of the older gentlemen, once they get into their 60s and 70s, like if they've gone through things like prostate cancer or just the general numbness that comes with older age, you know, after maybe their wife passes, maybe it's been a couple of years, and they're just like, I don't really know or understand what works. It's very common for me to hear like, oh, it doesn't work anymore. And then we get in there and I'm like, it does. It works fine.
Yeah.
We can make it happen. But like the lack of confidence really makes them feel like, and it makes them feel bad because they're like, I want to go into this sexual experience with as much agency as I can. And if they feel like their equipment isn't working, then it really like bums them out.
Yeah, well, that's sex is so much more to it than just a physical feeling. It's people crave that intimacy and that connection with someone, whatever way it might be. And like I said, obviously, focusing on the disability community, that does become a lot harder to engage with. So just being able to bring that into someone's life can improve it dramatically.
And I think also, like in general, people get stuck in the assumption in space that sex is just penis and vagina sex, right? Like people get very stuck into, this is the only way that I know how sex is done, and it's the only way sex has ever been portrayed to me. And if I can't do penis and vagina sex, well, then that's it. That's the end of the story. But the reality is that sex is everything that accompanies, you know, like sexual intimacy. You don't have to put a penis inside a vagina for you to be having sex. You could be dry humping and it's still sex.
Yeah, right.
Like you could be like exploring the rest of the body. Like people forget, and it's something that as a sex worker you learn, and even as a stripper that you learn, that every part of the human body can be sexual if you desire it to be, and if you want it to be, and if the person you're engaging with accepts and wants that kind of engagement as well. The hands can be sexy, the feet can be sexy, the lower back, the neck. Like there's so many other parts of the human body that are just not your genitalia that you can interact with and have real full body physical orgasms, or as close to that as you can experience.
And I guess, is that what you try to bring in and educate people on with your is it company Beyond Barriers? Is that sort of the education and things like that you're trying to spread?
Yeah, so Beyond Barriers was set up before the NDIS took away the ability to claim for sexual services. So originally when I set it up, it was simply just sex work under the NDIS, as long as your plan included it. And we all crossed our I's and dotted our T's and went through the many, many hoops that you had to jump through in order to secure a booking. Then it was a variety of either education or just strictly just, I can't access sexual intimacy anywhere else, and this is a need and a desire of mine, it's on my NDIS goals, and so now we're accessing it here. So sometimes it is just having fun.
Yeah.
Because that is a good, important part of the human experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the United Nations has explicitly stated that sexual health is human rights.
Yeah, right.
And so that's how it was under the NDIS before it was removed. It is a human right for you to experience this. If it is a part of your goal to experience this, then we can provide it.
Yep.
Now that we've transitioned out of that and you can no longer purchase sexual services under the NDIS, I still advertise Beyond Barriers as sex work specific for people with high physical support needs.
Yep.
So I still see people who are wheelchair users who have a variety of conditions like spinal cord injury or muscular dystrophy or spinal atrophy. And it can range, again, from just purely sexual expression. Like, it doesn't have to be education, it can just be fun, because again, it is a human right for you to experience sexuality if it's something that you wish to experience.
Yep.
No, that doesn't mean, because a lot of people get very caught up in the whole human rights of sexuality, and then they assume that it means that you have the right to someone else's body.
Yeah,
No.
there's a difference. Yeah.
There is a difference. I am consenting to being in that space with this person,
Yep.
and I want to experience this experience with that person, and I want to provide that service to them because it's their human right to express their sexuality, and I'm consenting to helping them do that.
Mm-hmm.
It is not the same as me being bought and sold or trafficked.
Yeah. Yeah.
But besides, the human right of sexuality, it is just something that if you wish to experience it, you should be able to.
Yeah, of course. And how do you go about when someone does book you through there and they just want, just a bit of fun? How do you separate, feelings and I guess people overstepping the mark and yourself with something that is so intimate?
Well, yeah, I mean, it happens in, with the disabled community and with general population. People always get attached to their sex workers. We see it time and time again, even in the private industry. If you work in a brothel, so I also work in a brothel in Brisbane, and you see people become very attached to their sex workers. And generally it happens because they don't have a community elsewhere.
Yeah.
If we become their entire community, then of course they are going to be emotionally attached to the person that they see once a fortnight, once a month, or even more regularly if they have the availability and money to. The way you kind of work through that is, it kind of depends on the personality of the sex worker. So I'm someone who tends to redirect conversation. I don't outright say no or remind them that this is fake.
Yeah, right.
It's more of a redirection. And I tend to just also not give out any other personal details like phone numbers or stuff during the bookings.
Yep.
Other people are way more successful at doing that and holding those barriers, even with allowing that additional contact. I'm not very good at maintaining that barrier, so I don't allow that.
Yeah.
But the other thing as well is that you do sometimes, and that's why sometimes you have to fire clients, because some people can't be told no. And that's okay, because again, I recognize that a lot of the time these people are just missing a community.
Yeah.
And so if this is the only community they have, then they're going to get attached.
They get attached to it.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that problem where you've sort of got slightly attached to a client?
Oh, I always get attached to my clients. I love them. Whenever some of my regulars come in, I'm like, my husband's coming up the stairs. Because I want to be attached to these people. I'm not dissociating during these bookings.
Yeah.
I do want to be present, and I only want to see people that I enjoy seeing. But the reality is that I'm not looking for a partner.
Yeah, okay.
So I provide the service, and I enjoy providing the service, and I want to hear about your family and what you did, and I will remember what we spoke about last time so that I can bring it up again, and I know your birthday's coming up in June, so we'll do something important for it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's the same as you getting attached to your physiotherapist, or you getting attached to the GP, or you getting attached to your really rich eccentric aunt that buys you gifts and makes you feel really special when you come over,
Yeah.
You just kind of have to navigate it as it comes.
Yeah, it would be difficult. Like I said, it's such an intimate and can be emotional experience with people, especially if they're, as you said, lacking anything outside of that. So could definitely become attached. But yeah, I imagine for you as well, because I guess sex in general is generally better with someone you have some sort of connection with. So whether it's physical or whatever it might be. So it would definitely be difficult to toe that line. But have you, during your experiences with people with disabilities, especially at the start, was it different to what you expected? Was it better or worse? Or
Oh, the very first disability booking I had, we spoke over email, and he provided me with as much information as he could, and because I was so new to it and I didn't ask enough questions, right?
Yep.
And so I show up and I get in and I see him there on the bed, and I very quickly realize that his level of support needs is significantly more than I was ready for,
Okay.
especially as someone who was new to the industry and hadn't done this before.
Mm-hmm.
So it was my very first booking, and it went really, really well. So like it was successful, but I really just threw myself in the deep end.
You had a bit of a shock straight up.
Yeah, like my very first booking was with someone who couldn't even move their own neck.
Right. Okay.
And so I went in being just like, oh, I am the captain of this ship today.
Yeah.
Like I am really running this entirely myself, and trying to make him feel as engaged as possible and not just an inanimate object that I'm interacting with. I'm trying to make him feel like he is reciprocating as well. And so it was a huge learning curve. And I remember coming out of that just a little bit like, all right,
Yeah.
we did it. I think it went really good. I hope that he experienced the intimacy and the reciprocation that he needed. But I came out of that and went, all right, the questions I need to ask beforehand have to be way more specific.
Learning experience. Yeah.
And I worked with like a couple of OTs after that to like really build the questionnaire that I kind of had before bookings as well, to make sure that I wasn't going into something that I wasn't ready for.
Yeah, I guess, like you said, if you're prepared, it makes both of you feel more comfortable because you're going to be more confident going in, which is going to make them feel more comfortable. And I think that's such a big part of it, though, especially for people with disabilities, is just a little bit of it is just throwing yourself in the deep end and figuring it out as you go. Because a lot of it's still unknown, and especially if you're someone with a disability having a sexual experience with someone that hasn't been with someone with a disability before. So I think, like you said, so much more of it. And it can get a little uncomfortable or funny at times, but if you just throw yourself in the deep end and have a crack, then you're going to figure it out along the way. And it might be the first time, and then the next time it gets a lot better. So I think that's a massive thing of it. You mentioned that you were married and had a family. How do they view your sex work now?
Literally no idea.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's one of those situations where like baby daddy's off in the wind, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'll tell you when I re-engage at some point.
Right. Might find out one day.
Yeah, might find out one day. I hopeful and fingers crossed.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
We'll do a part 2 episode and just talk about that when it happens. That could be interesting. I guess on that same sort of topic, how do you now separate your sex work from your personal sex life or relationships, or however that might be? Does it affect the way that I know you said you're not really looking for a partner or marriage or anything, but does it date the way that in your personal life you see people?
It does. So when you have interacted with, because like I've had sex with so many people now, because that if you're going to become a sex worker, you're going to be having a multitude amount of sex.
Yeah.
And so that means I've interacted with so many people I would have never interacted before in my life. And so it informs the way I see people. Like I have had so many different interactions now with men and women where it has now informed the things that I look for in a partner.
Right. Yep.
Like seeing, especially like married men come in and see me, and married men who come in and see sex workers don't inherently hate their wives. Like you can tell, you can really feel the love that some people have for others through a booking when they really just won't stop talking about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, sometimes I'm a little confused as to why you're here, because I can clearly see that you love her.
Yeah.
But that's also the funny thing about sex work, is that it's not also this dirty, dirty secret that some people think that it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is just a service, and things happen in people's lives that the service is required elsewhere rather than inside the domestic home. But definitely with the people that I've met along the way, and with the amount of different personalities and relationship types that I have interacted now, like I no longer seek that kind of domestic partnership with people.
Yep.
I value, again, because I've seen so many people without community, I value a much bigger community nowadays.
Right.
I value the idea of having very close friendships that can also have that kind of platonic romance. I really value people who work on themselves and are introspective. And so it informs the relationships that I have and the general sex that I have. I mean, to be honest, I can go months without having recreational sex.
Yeah, okay.
Just because I do get it so often.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, if that need's sort of being fulfilled in your job. Are you still looking for sexual partners in your personal life, or it's not really a need?
No, it's not a need.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, depending on how often I'm working, I can be having lots and lots and lots of sex. And so I'm feeling physically fulfilled.
Yeah.
The emotional intimacy definitely feels lower.
Yeah, of course.
But since I've started working in a group environment like a brothel, I also get a lot of that aftercare and emotional support fulfilled just through the other workers.
Yep.
Like, to exist in an all-female work environment.
Yeah.
Like, I know that you're not a woman, and so, like, you might not understand what I mean, but, like,
Yep.
there's so few female-only spaces in the world that, like, when I'm at work, I am in bliss. I'm just like, all my ladies are here. We are all talking about the same thing. We all share the same values and morals.
Yep.
It's amazing. And so, like, going to work does fulfill a lot for me, not just through the sex side, but through the community that I have, through the open discussion that I'm able to have with people, through sharing my experiences of being hypersexual my whole life with other people who are also hypersexual. Because I have always been that odd one out in groups where it's like, why does she want to keep talking about that?
Yeah, right.
And now I get to talk to people who also want to talk about it for hours.
Yeah.
So
It is just that finding the community, isn't it? The right one for you, and they can fulfill a lot in life. So
exactly. Once you have found your right people, then, like, you're pretty set.
yeah.
Yeah.
So those people that come in that have wives or partners, do they explain why they're there, or have you ever heard anything?
It's kind of like 50-50. Sometimes they will get very self-conscious, and so they will want to explain why.
Yeah.
The why isn't important to the provider.
Yep.
Some people prefer outright just not to know, because they're like, I don't want to know if you have a wife, dude.
Yeah. Okay.
And some providers don't mind and are happy to hear about it. With some people, I've had people have full-blown panic attacks in the middle of a booking because they've realised that, okay, no, this is real. I am cheating on my partner.
Yeah, it clicked for them in that moment.
And, you know, I've had to, like, stop, soothe, pat on the back, be like, it's okay. No, you cannot have a refund.
Yeah.
You're going to have to go deal with this elsewhere now. And then I've had people who have just been very honest, where it's like, yeah, look, like, you know, it's just really hard at home at the moment, and there's so many things going on. Like, I've had people who have described having very intense work-life balance, and their wife is working a lot as well. They're spending so much time and energy keeping the family home and the kids maintained and everyone happy, that the last thing he wants to do is be like, oh, babe, can you roll over and can, like, we have sex tonight, even though you're exhausted and I can see that you're tired and you just don't want to. Like,
just need that bit of a release somewhere, like, okay. I guess everyone has their own sort of stuff going on, don't they? Like you said, some you don't need to know, and I guess you're there to provide a service, and as long as that's done in a safe way and everyone consents, then
exactly. As long as it's done in a safe way, as long as everyone's consenting, and as long as you're not answering or taking a call from your father or anything, or your mother while you're in a booking with me, or your wife.
Does that happen?
Please don't do that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, people just answer the phone. And I'm like, what are we doing right now?
Kind of in the middle of something.
Like, I'm in the middle of something. You've paid a lot of money to be here. Can you do this later?
Yeah, you'd think you'd let that one go to voicemail, wouldn't you?
Oh, that's all right.
So I think we sort of touched on it earlier, but bad experiences in the industry. Like, you hear, I don't know if it's just movies or whether you hear it, but like of some unsafe, like, people, whether they get aggressive or, you know, I always think if you were to just go to someone's house, like, you don't really know, I guess, who you're going to see. They might, have you ever had it where they pretended they had a disability and didn't, or have you had any bad or scary experiences?
So luckily I've never been to someone who was pretending to have a disability. And again, that's helped by my questionnaire process. And when it was under the NDIS, you know, I would need your NDIS number and your plan manager and all that other stuff. So very hard to fake all of that.
Yeah.
There is definitely like a lot of safety risk. Obviously, you're putting yourself in an intimate position. You can't like, what are you going to do? Wear a button around your neck to call the police? Like, it kind of ruins the mood and the look. But like those situations do occur. Luckily, I've never been in a situation where I've been like physically assaulted or anything like that. But I've definitely had people who have used their size to be like intimidating and then try to get certain acts or experiences out of me that I don't sell or I'm not comfortable doing.
Yep.
And I do always joke to like the ladies or like anyone who will listen to me honestly that the price that I sell my services for high physical support needs clients is the you can't get up and chase me discount.
Yeah, right. It is like, fair, easy to get away, isn't it?
Exactly. I'm probably not going to die in your presence.
Yeah, probably not.
So you get a little bit cheaper.
Yeah.
The other clients have to pay more because A, it's a luxury service, it does cost a lot. But B, the price point that I try to do is the price point that I think someone who wants to cause someone intentional harm isn't going to put down that much money first to do it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, there's a bit of a risk factor involved with it, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that doesn't mean that ladies who are doing cheaper services are inherently worse off or in terrible situations or bad people, because that's a lot of whorephobia between the levels of sex workers that can go around and even the whorephobia of the general public, which is why a lot of people, when they think of sex work, they think of someone who's a drug user, homeless, or a multitude of things that are just not nice assumptions about people.
Probably movies again.
Well, I mean, and of course, and like I've been in those kinds of positions before, like, you know, coming straight out of getting divorced, all of a sudden being in a position where I'm the only financial support for like myself and the rest of the family.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are reasons why those tropes exist.
Yep.
But the reality is that's not the reason I got into it.
Yeah, of course.
It's still separate. It may have informed some decisions, but it's not the ongoing reason, or, you know, there's no like psychology behind why. I just happen to really like sex and like talking about it, and I want to have it a lot, and like sue me if I think everyone's fuckable. You know what I mean? Because people look at me all the time and they're like, oh, so charitable.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Charitable.
Yeah.
Charitable. That person's hot. What are you talking about? Like,
yeah. Oh, it's a good sort of, I guess, mentality to have in that space. You kind of need that, don't you? Otherwise, it would some days would feel like a bit of a drag if you weren't like that. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But no, it's good. And yeah, look, people's whorephobia is often then replaced by their incessant need to infantilize the disabled.
Yeah.
And so people will go from being like, ooh, you're a sex worker, to being like, oh, the work you do is so important.
Yeah, looking after the poor little disabled people. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, you like me now again.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's nice.
It's funny, so funny seeing the way people interact differently with, like when I'm out with, say, one of my support workers or something. So many people go out of the way and say hi to me and, hey, you having a good day? Not say anything to the bloke I'm with, or just little things. I'm like, they probably go home thinking so good about themselves, talking to the poor guy in the chair, and I'm like, people mean well, but it's just one of those unnecessary things, isn't it? That people just, their mentality switches as soon as it's someone with a disability.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, oh, this person can't fend for themselves, and how good is it that you're providing this service that they? And it's like, oh, Jesus Christ!
Yeah,
like,
funny. So, what kind of? I guess you don't have to tell me specifics, but what kind of price point is something like this, like sex work in general?
So, like, it vary greatly because the price point depends on the specific acts and actually what you want to do.
Right.
So, sex work is kind of like a build your own package kind of thing. You're like, do you want to do these certain positions? Do you want... How grotesque can I get on this podcast?
If it's too bad, I'll edit it out. But
okay,
go for
cool.
it.
But like, you know, if you're coming in, so for example, if you to come and see me at the brothel, that's like where the starter price point is. And generally you can receive full service which is massage, blowjob, and sex, to the provider's discretion from as cheap as 180 for half an hour.
Right.
My club kind of moved away from the 180 and went up a little bit,
Yep.
but it's not too much. And then it can also go anywhere up to 400 to 600 or even more for a half hour as well, because it really just depends on what you're actually asking for.
Yep.
If you're asking for the bare minimum, which is your, massage / hand job with a blowjob and sex in doggy in one position for 4 minutes, you're probably going to get the 180 package.
Yeah, okay, so it really depends, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like going to Subway, just for your sex, see what you want on there. And just
Exactly, like how much cheese do you want, how many olives do you want,
Yep,
all the other stuff, and now we'll quote you. And again, it will also depend per girl as well. So I sometimes sell certain services that other girls are like, oh, you sell that really cheap. And it's like, well, yeah, but I like doing that.
Okay.
So that doesn't feel like work to me. And like some other girls will sell like backdoor, for example, cheaper than others, whereas in like I either don't sell that or it is really expensive because I don't like doing it.
Yeah, right. So really, so you can be a bit open to like everyone set sort of their own price to an extent of what.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Preferably, we do want everyone to, have their own prices.
Yep.
Because it is something that is so intimate, and so you really have to reflect on what is it that you're comfortable selling that at.
Yep, that's fair. And obviously it'd be a higher price to come to someone's house and that's a private service that way.
Yeah,
Be a lot
so
more, yep.
out calls, as we call them. So an out call is something where you either go to a hotel or you go to the client's house. That tends to be a little bit more expensive, because you're just adding on like the additional like safety cost.
Yep.
Whereas in either going into a brothel or seeing someone in their own personal in-call space can be a little bit cheaper. But again, that is also dependent on the worker. There are workers out there who are priced the way they are because of experience and because of how long they've been in the industry. Or there are people who are priced the way they are because they're super popular OnlyFans girls.
Right,
they're popular international porn stars, so those ladies are going to cost a lot.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like once you get that status, then people might want that. But
Exactly, yeah.
Have you had anyone come into the brothel with disabilities, or are they more with home calls? I know you have had people come in. Yeah. Okay.
So definitely still it's more general population when you are working in the brothel. But my brothel is accessible. So we have an elevator, we have an accessible room. So Platinum 175, by the way, if you're ever in Brisbane. So we have one accessible room with the accessible shower and a shower chair. And not a commode, unfortunately. I would love to buy them a commode. I'll get there eventually. So we do have accessible space. I will say that the hallways probably wouldn't fit the largest of the power wheelchairs, but it's as accessible as you can get.
Yeah.
With the low funding and the minimal amount of profit that I'm sure brothels actually make, because it's not like they're raking in the dough.
Isn't it? Yeah,
No, they're actually. I don't know how brothels exist, to be honest, with such little profit margin, but they're doing well.
Yeah, right. So I assumed it would have been the opposite. And thought
You'd think, but I think like with the one that I work at as well, like the owner puts in a lot of effort to make sure that the spaces and the facilities are really as good as like they can get, and that we have a lot of safety measures in place, and that she has staff on that are dedicated to cleaning and other jobs, so that the environment is just as nice and as clean and as accessible as possible. Where I'm sure if you're cutting corners, maybe you're
making more money, but
keeping more of the profit for yourself. But yes, we do get some regulars who come in who have disabilities. So people that I see regularly, or maybe don't, maybe it's not me that sees them, because again, I love the idea of choice. I never wanted to monopolize the market. I remember when I first started Beyond Barriers, they were like, oh, you're going to have everyone. And I was like, that's kind of not the point though. Because not everyone's going to think I'm attractive. If I'm the only sex worker in Brisbane that disabled people are allowed to see, that's not accessible.
Yeah, true.
That's just one chick. Preferably it should be all of us. And so
do you know other sex workers that work more so with disabilities, similar to yourself?
Yeah. There's some other ladies at my work as well that advertise specifically also for disabilities. And then obviously the ladies who have regulars with disabilities as well. There's at least a couple of gentlemen who come into my club who have like a regular lady and they're disabled. So they're seeing them as often as they see them.
Yeah, okay. What's sort of the most complex disability you've worked with that was a bit tricky?
Definitely a older gentleman with spinal atrophy.
Right.
So spinal atrophy is generally something from birth, and he was at the stage where limb contractures on every limb, not being able to move the head. And I remember that his support person had set him up with a mirror so that he could actually see what I was doing, because he wasn't going to be able to actually mobilize or move if I was behind him or interacting with his genitals. He just wasn't going to be able to see it.
Yeah.
So they had set up a mirror so that he could actually view what was going on, because otherwise he was just at my mercy.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it's something that's, I wouldn't have thought about that. I guess it's something like you said, that experiences.
Yeah, and that comes from, like, that wasn't my idea. That comes from him having experience seeing sex workers and then probably realising that he was not enjoying not being able to see what was happening. So yes, setting up a mirror and stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess that's the other thing as well with support workers. For the person with disability that you're working with, you've got to interact with them as well. And so people with the disability, I guess, need to feel comfortable enough with that support worker and things like that. Have they generally been pretty receiving and that, or have you had any experiences where the support worker sort of wasn't on board and it just got a bit weird?
No, I've never had an experience where a support worker wasn't on board, thank God.
Yeah, that's good.
I've definitely seen other ladies interacting with, like, clients who were brought in by the support workers, where the support worker was kind of just like, oh, like, mum just said to bring him in here today.
Oh, I didn't really know what was going on.
Yeah. And, like, you can clearly see that, like, the client that she was interacting with was a non-verbal autistic adult.
Right.
And we could all clearly tell that he did not want to be here. He was not consenting to being in this space.
Ah, shit.
But the support workers were just told by his primary caregiver to go do that activity today.
Yeah, okay.
And so everyone involved, it was like a group discussion, just being like, oh no, we should take him home.
Yeah,
like,
a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, like he has stated no verbally quite a few times, and he's not capable of regulating or sitting down. This isn't happening today. You're going to have to go home and say, Mum, that wasn't it.
Yeah. What about non-verbal? Have you had any non-verbal clients?
A couple.
Because how do you go with getting, sort of knowing that there is consent or things like that with someone that's non-verbal, or what you're doing is working, or they're enjoying it, or
I would say people who are non-verbal generally are not coming into the brothel space, because that's not accessible to them. And when you go into a brothel, you do need to be able to communicate verbally, or at least through some kind of written word with what you want to need. With the times that I've interacted with non-verbal clients, it's been like an extensive back and forth, usually via email, and with multiple other providers involved, like occupational therapists and carers. And so the amount of discussion kind of really
make sure everyone's on the same page. And
like there's a lot of time to say no.
Okay.
And then also, just once you're in the moment, it's really trying to see what their body language is like, and trying to feel like you do. That's one of the funny things about being a sex worker and trying to maintain those balances, is that sometimes you do have to open yourself up a little bit in order to, like, really feel the energy of the other person. And so it does make you vulnerable, especially if you are someone who's very compassionate or empathetic and who can feel other people's energies, then, like, you're putting yourself in a vulnerable position by doing that. But it needs to be done sometimes.
Yeah, like I said, bridging that gap between all different disabilities would be different experiences, different things needed to be done for each person. So just having that, it's just that empathy, and like I said before, just throwing yourself in the deep end every now and then and giving it a go. Most of the time, you're going to figure it out along the way.
Well, it's a lot of trial and error, trial by fire. And I do think, from at least the people that I've spoken to, that's one of the biggest barriers to sex workers actually providing services to the disabled, because this industry is not something that you can go and learn and be taught. It's generally self-run, and we do have community spaces, but even then, like, I've done workshops with, like, the Bigger Sister channel on how to provide like sexual health checks for people with high physical support needs and stuff like that. So there is learning that you can find out there, but it's far and few between. And a lot of sex workers will just simply say, if I don't know it, I'm not going to test it on someone.
Right, okay.
And so, like, there will be people that there'll be lots of sex workers that'll just be like, oh, I don't consent to providing services to the disabled. Not because they don't want to, because there's actually research that's been done in New South Wales that shows that sex workers actually really do want to provide services to the disabled. It's just that a lot of the time we're really scared to get it wrong.
Yeah.
And you do have to get it wrong to learn. But no one wants to ever hurt someone else during a booking.
Yeah, of course.
Like, I've had to explain what contractures are to other girls where they're like, but doesn't that hurt? Like, what if I'm on top and like I don't know that they're in pain?
Yeah.
Like, it's that kind of fear that a lot of sex workers have. And especially because we're a community that's kind of self-governed, it's like if I do something wrong, it reflects badly on all of us.
Yeah, I guess it's a fair fear to have to an extent, until you, like you said, either do throw yourself in the deep end and educate yourself on it, but yeah, you can't go do a course on how to have sex with someone with contractures or something like that.
No,
So
it's a little bit hard. Like,
yeah.
Touching Base does do professional development,
Right.
so you can go and pay for the course there to also learn a bit about interacting with the disabled
Yeah.
under the sexual umbrella. And again, like, I've run a couple of workshops, but there is really nothing like just doing it.
Yeah, that's
You
where
know, there's nothing like interacting with a stoma bag for the first time. There's nothing like really seeing how someone's body looks like after either years of not being used through spinal cord injury and stuff like that. Like, nothing really prepares you until you're in the moment.
Yep.
But that is a very scary thing for a community of people who are so discriminated against that people don't want to provide us with education half the time. They're like, ew, dirty ladies. I'm not going to give them any help.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, it really is just a fear of, like, if I get it wrong, it reflects badly on all of us,
Yeah,
is what I have heard through the community.
Yeah. What message would you have for people that are able-bodied, that whether it's through sex work or just in their personal life, that are considering engaging in sexual activity with someone with a disability?
I would say just go into it with an open mind and curiosity. Like, curiosity is the biggest thing that'll always help you with any sexual partner, is just being curious to what their sexual needs are, what helps them either reach climax or reach some kind of euphoria. And going into it with creativity as well. Like, it's not going to look the way that you expect it to look. Maybe you're going to need pillows and cushions and wedges. Maybe you use toys, maybe you don't. Maybe you're interacting with a part of the human body that you never thought you would interact with sexually. I've seen a really big increase of people licking armpits recently.
Really?
A huge increase. Every man and his dog is doing it.
Right.
Every man wants to lick my armpit and they think it's super sexual. Like, that's the kind of, there are trends in, like, sexual behaviors as well. And so, like, if you're going to go in to a situation where you're going to be having sex with someone disabled, just go into it being like, this is going to be super fun.
Yeah.
I'm going to experience something I haven't experienced before. I'm curious to see how this goes. And don't put a time frame on it. People often are like, oh, you know, sex is always over in like 15 minutes. Sex can go for 4 hours if you want it to. Like, there is no like, oh, like, chop.
Yeah.
Especially with someone who has like lower sensation. Like, if the goal isn't ejaculation or orgasm, then the goal should be pleasure. And that can just go for as long as you want it to.
Yeah, well, with that, I guess I'm quite fortunate in the fact that I can have sex in quite the traditional way quite easily. Only difference is now I'm a bit of a starfish, and because I don't get the same sort of sensation as what I did prior to my injury, because obviously I haven't been injured my whole life, so I have that comparison to make. So it definitely is different, and I don't get that same sensation, but you definitely figure out other ways to make it enjoyable and still definitely get a lot of enjoyment and pleasure out of it. Whether now I guess I'm a lot more giving and get more pleasure out of, you know, making sure they have a good time. So
yeah, exactly.
there are things that you figure out along the way, and that was early days figuring that out, and now sort of 8 years down the track, it's I'm a lot more aware of it and know there's other ways you can contribute, whether it is giving them pleasure or even just directing and things like that. So like you said, if you're able to find your person to jump in the deep end with and that sort of thing, figure things out along the way, it can definitely still be very enjoyable for you and your partner. So just really having an open mind going in there and be ready to explore things is your best advice. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
What about the other way around, and someone with a disability that can is feeling a bit hesitant, wants to sort of get back out there, either with paid sex
Mm.
work or even just in their personal life as well, what advice would you have for them?
I would say you don't ever need to apologise for being disabled. That's the big thing. And if someone is engaging with you sexually, you absolutely do not need to apologise to them, even if it's a sex worker or if it's someone recreationally. One of the biggest mood killers during a booking is when someone goes, I know you're being paid to be here. And it's like, well, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. But I'm also enjoying this experience with you.
Yeah.
And if you bring this up one more time, I'm probably going to stop enjoying this
Yeah.
experience with you, because now you keep reminding me that you're upset that you're having to pay for it. And I get that. It is very upsetting that you do have to do that. But that kind of lack of confidence can be felt through the experience.
Betrayed. And you've had people like apologise to you during it, have you? Is that sort of thing?
Yeah,
Right?
people do get quite self-conscious, and they will apologise, or they will say like, like I know you're not enjoying this, and it's like, actually I am.
Yeah,
I really actually am, but you're like the fear that I can feel coming off of you is now not ruining the moment, but it is putting a pressure on me to now to regulate your emotions during this.
So for them to just have confidence that even though they have a disability, that sex can still be enjoyable for the other person, and just go in there with a bit of confidence and
go in there with what you're good at. I have, you know who eats pussy the best? Men who can't use their dicks. Like, amazing. Like, you will have skills that other people won't. Like, you can't move your legs anymore, but you have really buff forearms with veins all over them. Guess what? You are about to become the fingering master. Like you have talents that you don't even know exist. Like, your ability to withstand dry humping, like there's so many sexual parts of the body. I mean, I'm someone who loves pubic hair because I think it's a great sensory experience when you're coming together. And so, like, you don't even know yet you don't even know yet how that person you're interacting with is actually going to come, if they are going to come or not. And you'd be so surprised. Like, I've had people who have made me orgasm with the bridge of their nose.
Right.
Like, there is so many things involved. And so it's just going in and being like, okay, well, this part of the body doesn't work, or this part of the body doesn't work. What do I have to my advantage?
Just ready to open mind, ready to explore and figure out what works.
Yeah.
Yep.
And look, if the person that you're with is getting all weirded out that you're not able to have sex traditionally, then that person's not for you.
Not the right person. That's exactly what I say now as well. Like, even before your injury, you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Not even like now after having a disability, still not going to be everyone's cup of tea either way. So you can't, I guess, just expect it just because I have a disability that he's going to not like me, or they will like me. People might like you more with a disability than before you had one, or whatever the case might be. So I guess it is about finding your person, same as anyone, and as we said, going with an open mind and ready to explore.
Go with open mind, ready to explore, have sex with other people with disabilities as well. Because I think I have seen some people get really caught up in the fact that able-bodied people won't date me. And it's like, you are doing the same thing as them, where you're discriminating against other non-able-bodied people.
Right, yeah.
Because you are only aiming for an able-bodied partner. Like, one of the big things that really started the NDIS funding sex work was people who both had physical disabilities who were married, who needed a sex worker to come help them interact.
Right. Yep.
Like, it's also just, the discrimination that you're feeling if you're giving it back as well is also not going to help.
Have you had any of those experiences with needing to help a disabled couple?
Not yet.
Not yet?
I would love to do that.
On the bucket list?
Yes. I would love to do that. One of my things that I used to advertise, but it never really picked up, but I'm sure it'll come back later, is I really wanted to go and help disabled people go to, like, the swingers club and the sex clubs and, like, help facilitate their mobility there. I always joked that if I have to hold the back of your head and move it for you, I will. Like, that's okay. But no one's taken me up on that yet, unfortunately.
Yeah, someone might.
Yeah, someone will get there eventually.
Someone might hear this and then send you an email.
They're like, I do want someone to hold the back of my head and move it for me, yes.
So if someone does want to get onto you and engage either through your education or engage in physical activity,
Mm.
how do they get onto you? How do they find you?
So you can find me on like your general advertising sites like Real Babes or Ivy Society, but also you can find me either physically in my space at Platinum 175, or you can contact me at afterdarkaffair.com.au or beyondbarriersintimacy.com.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for coming on and being so open about everything. As we said, it can be a bit of a niche topic that people don't
Yeah.
want to talk about, especially for people with disabilities. So
Mhm.
hopefully some people got some confidence or a bit of guidance from here that might have been wanting to step into either the sex work industry or to people with disabilities wanting to engage. So
Yeah, 100%. Look, if you're someone with a disability who is scared to see a sex worker because you don't know how it's going to work, or you think that the sex workers are going to reject you because of your disability, I implore you just to give it a go, because a lot of the time it can be some of our funnest bookings as a sex worker to work with someone with a disability, and it can just be really super fulfilling in a way that you didn't think it was going to be, and you might make lifelong friends as well.
yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much for coming on.
Right. Thank you, Nick.
Cheers. Well, that was a very interesting chat with Avalon, and again, thank you to her for coming on and being so open about a topic that people often want to avoid. Again, especially when people with disability are involved, but it is such a important topic, an important part of life that for many people with disability and even without, that is not able to be engaged with. So the service she's providing is definitely a necessary one, and thank you again for being so open. But again, just the takeaways from that of if you have a disability, if you don't, if you're engaging in someone with a disability, or if you're not, just going into things with an open mind and being ready to explore and just to feel comfortable with each other. So I think that's a massive takeaway from that, and thank you again to Avalon for providing that insight to us. If this episode or any of my episodes do bring up any adverse feelings for yourself, please contact Lifeline for support on 13 11 14. You can also send them a text message on 0477 13 11 14, or go to lifeline.org.au and navigate towards the live chat. Remember to reach out and check in on each other, and that it ain't weak to speak. Also, don't forget to go check out the Instagram page at chatsfromachair_podcast, or the Facebook page at Chats from a Chair Podcast, and let me know who you think I should have on and have a chat with, and also check out all of my past guests where you can catch up on episodes you might have missed. But that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed this chat as much as I did. Cheers.